Groovy.
Resident Evil.
At 1 a.m., Williamson took watch. Nothing to report. At the end of his 2 hours, Conrad took watch. At 5 a.m., Rodriguez took a second watch, and Conrad laid back down. Their slumber would soon be interrupted. Feral beasts had claimed this area as their territory. The group had unwittingly entered a killing zone. They had caught the scent of fresh flesh, mixed with the decay of the dead citizens that lay around them in the cathedral. An intoxicating smell. The smell of the living. The smell of food. Conrad is awoken at 5:27 a.m. by their barricade for the front door being blown open, sending shards of wood and marble in all directions. With the immense sound came Conrad's greatest fear. The abominable screech of hunters. 8 of these monstrosities with red, tumorous growths around their heads. This model's scratch and bite are highly poisonous, much more so than its predecessor. This specimen's mutations also made them a much faster foe. This is a type he hadn't seen before, codenamed Hunter B, also known as Hunter Betas. Conrad didn't know this. It was above his pay grade. 30 of these new hunters were sent to Raccoon City from Umbrella's Chicago branch for further research and a final decision on whether or not they would proceed with production. Even though Dr. Albert Wesker of the Stars designed this monstrosity when he was still alive, Umbrella had continued work on his creation posthumously. Their goal was to make a cheaper product capable of carrying out orders like the mighty Tyrant and unstoppable Nemesis. With the Hunter line being so cheap to clone, they naturally had tried to improve upon the product. In the end, Hunter Beta had some really good things going for it, like an improved nervous system, giving it the aforementioned increased speed. This made them capable of dodging bullets. Although, it also had major flaws compared to the Hunter A line, also known as Hunter Alpha, which was encountered by the STARS officers in the Mansion incident on July 24th of this year. The Beta specimen line had larger, hooked-shaped claws, which was a benefit, but its major setback was the tumorous growths. These growths meant the longevity of their lifespan in the field was uncertain. However, the group didn't have time for them to die of malignant growths. Another setback was its aggression. This specimen is so aggressive, many of the researchers of Umbrella don't believe it's a viable candidate to carry out missions in the field. In any case, a truck carrying 30 creatures, including 10 Hunter Ys, each in individual stasis tubes, came to Raccoon City. However, an incident occurred in the early hours on the 23rd of this month, and the load was lost. Umbrella had sent the driver in an unmarked truck, giving him strict orders not to open the load under any circumstances, and only to deliver it to its destination with minimal stops. It was meant to be dropped off at one of Umbrella's warehouses. Once there, Umbrella employees would deliver it to a hidden lab underneath the Spencer Memorial Hospital, named Nest 2. This lab was now ran by the company's founder, Lord Oswell E. Spencer, since his hidden lab was destroyed in the Archeli Forest during the Mansion incident with the STARS. Despite his health setback in recent years, he still conducted research with a hand-selected team who carried out his orders to the letter. They dare not question him after hearing rumors of what he did to the other two founding members of Umbrella. For the driver, it was a normal night and a normal job. It wasn't the first time he'd had a load like this with such strict orders. This didn't bother him. A job was a job, and it was honest work. This late-night run took him down the winding roads, through the Archeli Forest, to make it into Raccoon City from the east. The sound started off small at first, something that could have easily been taken as noises from the load itself, bobbing behind him, like a fish waving its tail in a vast ocean of wind. After a while, though, it became unmistakable as he turned down the radio to check out the sound. It was then he heard the unmistakable thumping of something trying to get out of the trailer. Just as he pulled into Raccoon City, over Raccoon Street Bridge, he pulled off to the side of the road. He sat in the cabin, listening to the sounds coming from the trailer over his radio, unsure of what to do. All the time spent alone on the road, he had begun to think aloud and talk to himself.
What the fuck is going on now? Fucking hate this job. It's always something.
Hello, all you late night listeners. You have just heard So Dead by Matthew Johnson. We'll be right back after these messages, so keep it right here on 103.4 The Wolf.
What do they have me transporting? Have dead cadavers for the local university or something? That's probably it. Someone fucked up and didn't check properly and they're alive, right?
Just in time for Halloween. Catch a chilling double feature now. First up, it's going to be one hell of a family reunion as the brother of evil returns.
No, that's stupid.
Fear held him in place as he struggled to come up with a plan.
Shit. Wife told me after I almost had my load jacked last time I should find a safer job, but no. I said I'm taking a new job for Umbrella. It'll be safer just transporting medical supplies, I said. Fuck.
Then, there's worse things out tonight than vampires. Can the rise of the blood god be stopped?
You keep your eyes open. They're everywhere.
Fuck! Don't want to check what that noise is.
He silently prayed the sound would stop, and he could continue on, that he would have a story to tell, the one mysterious load that terrified him, but it wasn't stopping. He was going to have to deal with it, whether he wanted to or not.
Now playing at the Evans City Megaplex.
The driver finally turned the key to kill the engine and laid his head on the steering wheel.
Fuck! I better get this over with.
He then leaned down and grabbed a sawed-off shotgun from under the passenger seat, not knowing this boomstick wasn't going to be much help. He exited after a moment, having finally gathered the courage to stop procrastinating and investigate the strange noise. He made his way around the truck, holding his sawed-off shotgun tightly in one hand, gaining confidence from the weight of the gun. He heard sirens in the distance and gunfire, but didn't think anything of it. He just assumed he was in a bad part of town, not being from here. He made it to the cargo door and called out.
Are you okay?
No answer.
Hello? I'm gonna get you out.
He unlocked the door slowly, all the while the banging continued. Before he could open it all the way, the door was forced open, knocking him to the ground. He accidentally fired off one of the barrels from his shotgun in the process. The buckshot ricocheted off the metal of the trailer, hitting the concrete next to him. He was almost knocked unconscious as he hit his head on the road. He fought passing out and looked up to see the red beast stepping out of the truck, making a reptilian clicking sound. He screamed as he fired the last shell at the beast. This opened a wound in her left shoulder as she screeched in pain. She then jumped into the air, coming down full force, and planting her claw into his chest. She quickly removed it and looked down at him as deep, red blood began to pour from the open wounds in his chest. 3 zombies, 2 female, 1 an Asian woman, and the other an African American, accompanied by a very portly Caucasian man with long black hair, stepped around the truck. The Asian woman had deep bites into her stomach. The other female was missing the entire left side of her face and an ear. The man's nose was bitten off, exposing bone. They were all 3 coming towards the trucker and the hunter with him. The hunter's attention was drawn to them, and she quickly, almost in the blink of an eye, smacked all 3 of them, sending chunks of the dead citizens in all directions. She then ran off into the night as the trucker laid his head on the ground. Looking up at the sky as he died. The Grand Valse tune lightly chirped from the Nokia flip phone in his left pocket. It was his wife, calling to make sure he was safe during this late-night run. "30 hunters have been hunting and killing since escaping the containment pods in the back of this load. 4 had perished from survivors fighting back around this section of the city. And 6 of them, well, they broke apart from this pack of cloned, tumorous red abominations. They are still out there in this area of the city, somewhere." Rodriguez, who was on watch at the front of the gigantic cathedral near the narthex, spotted them first. He instantly began firing his assault rifle as they entered the cathedral. His shots missed as the creatures ran for him. One hunter caught up to him in what felt like an instant and smacked him with its large, ominous claws, sending his gun flying and tearing open a large wound in his right arm. The hunters lose interest in Rodriguez since he's injured and hunt for a new target to eviscerate. This gave him a chance to use his belt as a tourniquet to stop him from bleeding to death. The hunter BOW's superior intelligence told him to deal with the threat first, then they could feast on whatever was left. The pack began running to the back of the cathedral, where the rest of the group is located by the pulpit. For a brief second, fear struck Conrad and his eyes got big, but he didn't let it get the best of him, as his training took over. Conrad turned to Sarah and Veronica and yelled, "Get to the confessional! Hide! I'll draw them!" He grabbed his M4 assault rifle and began firing at the creatures.
"I'm over here, she-bitches! Eat me!"
Williamson launched 2 frag grenades at the beasts, landing them a little past halfway up the momentous cathedral. With their immense speed, the frag grenade just injures them, blowing bits of pews in all directions, leaving Conrad one option, running and gunning it again. This gave Sarah and Veronica a shot to make it into the confessional to hide. Sarah's hand grasped the door as one of the hunters leaped for her, reaching her in one single bound and striking her head with its razor-sharp claws. With one ferocious blow, it half decapitated her, severing her spinal cord from her cranium, and leaving only a portion of muscle and flesh as her head dangled to one side. Sarah's whole body went limp as she fell to the ground in an ever-growing puddle of blood. Veronica made it inside just as the door is smacked by the claws of another hunter. Its claws hooked on the now wounded confessional, leaving a thin area for her to watch in horror from within. Frozen in paralyzing fear, her gaze is met by the hunter peering in, locking its delirious, rage-filled gaze in hers. Conrad's firing meets the demon standing at her door, and he is able to kill it before it can attempt to breach the door again to get to Veronica. Williamson was up and blasting buckshot at the pack, with Conrad firing at his side. They were unable to hit their mark. The creatures are just too fast. Conrad's clip runs out, forcing him to reload his last M4 magazine. One thing they never seem to have enough of here in Raccoon City was ammunition. He fires again, continuing to miss. They evade each shot. As the last M4 clip clicks, he is now completely down to his sidearm.
"Let's get behind the altar!"
Williamson motioned towards the large altar at the center of the chancel. They run for it. As they do, a hunter launches itself at Williamson. He fires, hitting it square in the face with a shotgun blast. This knocks the creature off course, causing it to narrowly miss him by inches. It lands next to him on the floor, dead. Now that they are behind the massive altar, this bought Williamson time to reload his W870 shotgun. During this, Rodriguez ran as fast as his legs would carry him, attempting to join his comrades. As he made his way between the pews, he garnered the attention of the hunters, forcing him to dodge a hit from one of the creatures by ducking and rolling. Then he narrowly missed a second hit from another hunter by jumping over some of the damaged pews from Williamson's grenades, almost tripping in the process. At this point, 2 hunters had them in their sights as they ran for him. He had to think of an idea and fast before they smack him with their terrible meat hooks again. He quickly thinks of an idea. He changes course. Instead of running down one of the aisles between the 3 long rows of pews, he heads into the middle row. He then quickly climbs up onto the pew and begins running across them, trying his hardest not to fall. All his time spent in the military, every single thing he learned to keep him alive in the shit during his training, and his time in combat was being tested. He continued on, firing all the while at the creatures in the aisle next to him, forcing them to dodge his attacks as well. Once to the last pew, he jumps onto the stage, almost falling off as he loses his footing.
Easy.
Williamson grabs Rodriguez and prevents him from falling. An expression of pain stretched across his face as he uses his burned arm to steady him. Rodriguez was finally able to join the other soldiers unscathed, thanks to help from his teammates, who had just left the altar after reloading. Together they kept some of the hunters off Rodriguez's back, making the hunters dodge their attacks in return. As long as the hunters were dodging bullets, they didn't have a chance to attack, buying the soldiers time to hopefully kill some more of these ugly motherfuckers. All that he had to do just to join his comrades made his broken ribs burn like white-hot daggers in his side, but he didn't have time to convalesce. After a moment, the adrenaline pumping through him pushed the thought of pain out of his mind as he focused his thoughts back on surviving. Rodriguez hands Conrad his last HK-33 clip that he too had acquired from a fallen soldier earlier in the mission. Rodriguez was glad Conrad and him were given the same weapons, because with his arm in the condition it is, Rodriguez couldn't use it. He has to use his Glock with his left hand, sacrificing his accuracy. The 3 men tried to defend themselves from the attacking creatures. They were able to kill 2 more before they made it to the altar. They were having to adjust their firing and try to anticipate the hunters' movement, to try to aim and fire just as they stopped moving. Conrad's HK-33 clip clicks empty, and Williamson's shotgun jams. A hunter lunged for them, causing the soldiers to jump out of the way in 3 different directions. Rodriguez jumped left, towards the direction of the dead priest's chambers. He landed on his injured arm, causing him great pain. He tried to continue firing at the hunters, but realized his gun is empty. This forced him to take cover behind the altar, while the hunters focused on his comrades, and used his injured arm to reload his gun, which was a great struggle in the state he's in. Conrad and Williamson pulled out their handguns and began firing. It was no use with their sidearms. The creatures just dodged out of the way. Yet again the hunter lunged for them, forcing them to jump out of the way a second time. Conrad jumped deeper into the chancel, ending up where the choir used to sing their religious hymns, knocking over microphones in the process. Williamson jumped off altogether, finding himself between 2 long rows of pews. 2 hunters began running towards Williamson. He was about to lose his life. This forced him to dodge the beasts yet again, as he jumped between the benches, narrowly missing the hunter's claws as they tore into the pews. In the process, their claws smacked into a particularly ripe corpse, opening it up. This unleashed an even more horrendous odor than they had grown used to with the corpses in the last few hours. One of the hunters went to attack Williamson again as he crawled out of the way under the pew. He isn't sure how much longer he can keep this up. Rodriguez, who had now reloaded his weapon, sees an opportunity to buy them some time. He just hopes he can distract the hunters long enough. He fires 2 rounds at the closest hunter, landing perfect shots into its head as it lunged for Conrad, getting an instant kill. Rodriguez jumped over the altar, screaming as loud as he could, firing into one of the hunters going for Williamson. The tumorous growths exploded from bullets, popping them open like boils, as Rodriguez landed on the floor near the pews. He fired 3 more shots that entered her head as the slide on his Glock locks open from an empty magazine. His distraction worked. He gained the attention of both hunters, saving Williamson. His attack dazed the creature as it stood there looking at Rodriguez. Rodriguez doesn't waver. He stared the creature down, looking it right in the eyes as it began to bob, and falls to the floor. Rodriguez was okay with what was about to happen. He knew he wasn't going to survive with this scratch, because he knew their attacks should be poisonous from the previous model, Hunter A. The last of the hunters lunged and shoved its claws through Rodriguez's stomach, lifting him off his feet. The hunter then throws him into the altar, causing it to topple over and break to pieces. From the crack in the confessional, Veronica watches.
No!
She didn't want to watch them die. The hunter turns to see Veronica in the box, but ignores her, focusing on the soldiers first, leaving her to kill last. Williamson and Conrad began unloading everything they had at the momentarily distracted hunter, screaming in anger all the while at what has befallen Rodriguez. Together they overwhelmed it, landing shots into her as their sidearms clicked empty. Conrad quickly reloads the last clip he had gotten from Officer David Ford at the RPD. He went to join Williamson as Veronica went to come out of the confessional. They thought it was over. They were wrong. A hunter was hiding in the back, in the shadows of the narthex. She had been watching the battle, waiting for the perfect moment to launch her attack. Like a jungle cat, stalking its prey, the last hunter jumps 5 feet into the air in an attempt to come down and stab the soldiers. They roll out of the way, narrowly escaping its claws. They got to their feet as fast as they could, and Conrad fired again. She dodged his attack with her immense speed while landing an attack on Williamson. She sliced him with her talons from hell through his bulletproof vest into his belly. Conrad was enraged seeing another ally be attacked. He began firing everything in his clip, praying it will find its target. This killed the final hunter as his Glock clicked empty. The gun was smoking profusely and warm in his hand from so much hot lead being pumped through the barrel in such a short time, leaving the smell of gunpowder in the air. The whole church goes quiet again, an almost haunting quiet. Conrad ran over to Williamson.
Are you okay? What can I do?
Veronica runs over to meet them.
I'm okay for now.
I have to see how bad it is.
Conrad pulled up his split vest to see underneath. It was a flesh wound, but it was profusely bleeding. Conrad walked over to Sarah's corpse and rips off a portion of her shirt. He whispered to her, "I'm sorry." He felt dirty for having to take from yet another corpse, but she unfortunately didn't need it anymore. He then placed it underneath Williamson's tattered vest. Conrad took off his belt and wrapped it around Williamson's torso and pulls it tight as he winces in pain.
Fuck.
This was the first time Conrad heard him curse. Williamson was always trying to be as polite and respectful as possible from the way he was brought up.
This isn't going to feel the greatest, and you're going to be in a lot of pain, but I don't have another option. It's going to feel like a corset. You may have trouble breathing too. I'm so sorry. We gotta get out of this fucking place.
Williamson shook his head in agreement.
You just going to leave me here, cabrón?
His mischievous smile had returned to his face, at least for the moment. All three survivors were surprised Rodriguez suddenly spoke.
You're alive?
I thought we lost you, buddy.
I'm not sure for how long with that wound.
Conrad and Veronica helped Williamson over to Rodriguez. Rodriguez's wounds were much worse than Williamson's. A pool of blood was slowly pumping out around him, leaving him a pale version of himself.
I'm just joking. I know I'm not getting out of here. I just didn't want you three to die here with me.
What can I do, brother? Conrad places his hand on Rodriguez's shoulder.
Find my wife, Bella. Let her and my girls know I love them. My biggest regret in life was not being with them more. Let them know they never left me.
Tears began to form in Rodriguez's eyes.
I just wanted to see them one more time.
Conrad had an idea. He could tell he was slipping. He reached into Rodriguez's pockets and started rooting around.
Now you're getting fresh, buddy. Where's my dinner?
Rodriguez's half-laugh caused him extreme anguish. Conrad found what he wanted. The picture of Rodriguez's family.
I will tell them. I promise. In the meantime, this is the best I can do.
Conrad then held the picture up to Rodriguez's face. Williamson took Rodriguez's hand as a tear streamed down his face.
We won't leave you, buddy. I promise.
With tears in her eyes, Veronica followed suit and grabbed his other hand as Rodriguez tightened his hold on their grip. Rodriguez couldn't feel much of his lower half. Being tossed into the altar had broken his spine in 3 places. He wouldn't have been able to walk out of here in the state he's in, but that no longer mattered to him, as his mind stayed on the only family he had back in Sun City, California. Feeling Veronica and Williamson's hands grasp his was a great comfort to Rodriguez, easing the fear of death to some extent, knowing he at least wasn't alone in his final moments, something he couldn't be more thankful for. To Veronica's surprise, his hand was cold to the touch. Rodriguez looked at her and half smiled. He wished he could do more to help the group. He then looked back at the picture of his family Conrad was holding for him.
My girls are so beautiful. I didn't deserve them. Thank you for letting me see them one more time.
Rodriguez looked past the photo. He was lost in a wonderful and beautiful memory, one he could never forget. the first time Bella said she loved him. He had dressed up as Zorro and went to her work on her lunch break to surprise her. He had spent the morning preparing a fancy lunch just to make her smile. Once there, the always playful Alejandro, while carrying the food in his other hand, began playing with the sword, saying,
No one can defeat me. I'm the best there is. Everyone knows my mark.
While playing around, he dropped the sword and clumsily went to pick it up with his other hand, dropping the food in the process. This made her laugh and smile brightly as she said,
I love you, Tomas.
For him, the moment was happening all over again. He could hear her words in his ears as he faded, finally letting himself slip away after Conrad let him see his family again, one final time. Rodriguez's eyes fixated and dilated, causing his hold on the other two's hands to lose grip. Conrad was successful in at least letting him see his family one last time, but he couldn't help but begin to cry along with the other two survivors. He couldn't take losing more people. I'm getting you out of here, both of you. I swear, I won't let anyone else die. Rodriguez's eyes began to move again as the virus slowly took hold.
Somehow after what we'd seen, I was afraid of this.
Me too. Hunter Alpha's poisonous scratch didn't hold the zombie virus within. This new form, however, Hunter Beta, did, and would zombify anything it attacked. Umbrella had been studying the zombie virus since its discovery in July of this year during the mansion incident. As a result, they had been trying to implement it into new, terrifying BOWs. Umbrella would stop at nothing to make the best bioorganic weapon possible, whether they killed multitudes of innocents to do so or not. Of all the many sins Umbrella was guilty of, eugenics was the company's main goal when it first began, with its three founders, Lord Oswell E. Spencer, Lord Edward Ashford, and Dr. James Marcus. Over the years, as the body count grew, greed was what drove Umbrella in the end, and eugenics became secondary. They quickly pushed him to his stomach before he could attack, and Williamson plunged his blade into the back of his head. All groaning and movement then stopped as the cathedral went quiet again. They turned him back over, said their goodbyes, and closed his eyes. Conrad tucked a picture of Rodriguez's family away, hoping it will help him find them when he's out of here. He then grabbed the last Glock magazine on Rodriguez's vest and reloaded. I'm so sorry for this, brother. Williamson and Conrad were both out of Glock ammo, and Conrad had used up everything for his M4 and HK-33. This prompted him to leave the empty assault rifles here in the church. Hand me your shotgun and some ammo. Williamson hands it to him. Conrad fixes the jam, fully loads it, and hands it back. You need something to protect yourself, and I doubt you could have done it at the moment.
Thank you.
Williamson wished he wasn't a liability. The last three surviving members of this group leaned on each other as they made their way out of the cathedral. Conrad was losing hope, but he would fight to his last breath to get these two out of here. Conrad noticed Veronica was beginning to sweat profusely and was unsure why. She wasn't bitten by a zombie or clawed by the hunters, so he shrugged it off as the heat of the Midwestern city's air, dry and humid, was already in the upper 80s and was going to be in the upper 90s today. Let's not even discuss the humidity levels. That's what will make today feel like an oven more than anything. The rain would make the air thick and heavy, like trying to breathe through a half-block straw. On good days in the South or Midwest, the rain will cool things, making the miserable summer day bearable. Or if you're unlucky, like today, it's a heavily steamed sauna, causing it to feel suffocating. The last 3 survivors exited out of the cathedral into the narthex, stepping over rubble from the holy water sconce and the desk. They left through the main entrance, walking on top of the 2 doors that were now completely off their hinges and in pieces. Outside, they were met by a couple zombies who had followed the sound of gunfire. Shoes sloshing from the rain with each shambling step, all the while.
Give me your hatchet.
No, I got...
Give me the damn hatchet. I got this. You help him.
She said this a little harsher than she meant. He begrudgingly agrees and hands her the axe. She makes quick work of them, and they head on out to the parking lot, where he sees a sign for the church. It was apparently named Living Waters Catholic Church, which he assumed had something to do with it being next to Circular River. They made it through the parking lot to 2 buildings. One was another bank. The other was a small strip mall with several locations within. One location in the mall was a tanning salon, right next door to a nail salon. Then the closest to the group as they walked between the buildings was Sigourney's coffee shop. This was one of several Sigourney's coffee shops here in Raccoon City, brewing the best coffee in town since 1979. Emerging onto the other side, they found railroad tracks next to the road they needed. They walked over the tracks and finally made it to Raccoon Street. To their left in the distance, they could make out a big rigged truck parked on the side of the road. They could also barely make out next to the truck what looked like a zombie, missing its lower half, trying to crawl, but couldn't. Its body was so damaged. This was the truck that hauled the hunters, but the group had no way of knowing this. To their right was the road that would lead them to the clock tower, so they headed right. After a few minutes of walking, they are suddenly stopped as they began to hear something strange.
What the hell is that?
They heard something rumbling, something shifting. They then began to feel it, something massive quaking under the ground. They see the road lightly cracking ahead of them, coming in their direction. As it got closer, the whole ground began to violently shake underneath them. Something massive, something evil was beneath their feet. Something wiggling its way through the earth, headed straight for them. The shaking of the ground became so intense, Williamson lost his footing and fell to the ground, reopening his side. He held tightly to the wound but kept it to himself. The whole group silently hoped whatever was beneath them would pass without any trouble. For the first time, they were actually lucky, and whatever giant thing that was under the ground moved on, leaving them be. This time. Let's not stick around to find out whatever monstrosity is going to try to kill us next. I don't think we even want to see whatever the fuck that was. Come on, just keep moving. We're so close now. They continue on, traveling for 2 city blocks, killing zombies here and there along the way. But then they finally see it. A large gate up ahead, with a giant clock looming in the distance, just 1 more block up the road. A beacon of hope for the 3 survivors. They were close to getting out of here. There were 5 more of the dead spread out here. Veronica defended the 2 soldiers, sending brain matter flying around the city street as she hacked. They made it to the gates. The clock tower was much larger than the soldiers had expected. It was multiple stories high, and that was just the main building. The clock tower itself was easily 16 stories high, a skyscraper towering over the city.
What is it with this city? How egotistic were the founders? Everything is so big, even the damn RPD.
Conrad thought. The St. Michael Clock Tower was originally a church when Raccoon City was founded, which is why the name of the clock is after a Catholic saint. The owner died, and the family sold it to the city before moving. Rather than tear it down, it was expanded upon greatly and made into the Raccoon City Courthouse. Now long defunct, it was declared a landmark and made into a museum back in the early 80s, when the RPD was changed from the city museum to the precinct. This moved the courthouse to where City Hall is now. Now the courthouse is a block over from City Hall. This change breathed new life into this district, causing the surrounding area around the clock tower to become the art district. Art galleries, playhouses, and art house film theaters began cropping up in the last 15 years. The most popular being the Raccoon City Film Society, which showed new and old films at cheap prices, even cheaper for members. In October, they would show classic horror films to the local teenagers and horror hounds' delight. This included such classics as Halloween, The Evil Dead, Hellraiser, and the immortal 14-year-old classic, A Nightmare on Elm Street, just to name a few. Festivals would also be held here of all sorts. A jazz festival was even scheduled before everything went to hell, but of course that never came to be. There's even a place here where you could go watch glass be blown in this district, and buy expensive glass whatnots, figurines, vases, and sculptures before the outbreak. There was also a place for cabaret, and a prominent drag club for Raccoon City's LGBT community, called Heidi in Closet, ran by Heidi herself, which was booming during Pride Month. Once to the clock tower's rear gate, Veronica drops the hatchet and grabs her temple, partly covering one eye, and begins to feel faint. She wobbles and falls to the ground. Conrad rushed to Veronica, but Williamson doesn't go with him. He stood next to the gate and watched while Conrad checked on her. Williamson was also concerned for Veronica.
Are you alright?
I don't feel so great.
Conrad reached down and felt her head. She was burning up. Defending them against the dead had exhausted her, causing the fever and infection's timetable to speed up.
When were you bitten?
Williamson sat down, propping himself against the wall, just to the right of the gate, not feeling well himself. He looked down and saw he had completely bled through the makeshift bandage Conrad made for him.
I wasn't. I was just scratched by one of the zombies.
Okay. Shit. I didn't expect this. But I think the scratch has infected you.
Let me think. Conrad paused for a moment, frantically trying to come up with a plan.
The helicopter should have antivirals with them. I am not gonna let you die. No matter what happens, I'm getting you both out of here.
About that, buddy. I'm not going to be joining you guys. I'm sorry. I hope you can forgive me.
Williamson was trying to be respectful, ever the gentleman.
What?
Conrad notices his blood-soaked bandage, and is shaken by this realization.
Shit. Not you too.
I'm so sorry, Conrad. Listen. Can you do me a favor?
Anything. Name it, brother.
Tears began to form in Williamson's eyes.
I need you to deliver this letter to my mom. I'm not going to make it out here.
Williamson pulled out the envelope, now spattered with his blood.
You got it.
Conrad took the letter and places it in his vest for safekeeping.
What else can I do?
Nothing. But keep the lady safe. And just tell my ma. I'm sorry. Her address is on the envelope. Here. Take this. I know you're just down to your pistol.
He then hands Conrad his shotgun.
There's only the 4 rounds in it. I don't have any more. Use it sparingly. I guess there's one more thing you can do. I'm so sorry.
Don't apologize. Just name it. Whatever it is, it's okay.
Conrad pats his knee in an attempt to comfort him. Williamson's wound had completely opened up in his fall, causing it to bleed far worse than when he was initially scratched. It was so deep, the only way to save him would have been to cauterize his wounds. Unfortunately, Conrad and Williamson weren't given flares. Only certain members of their team was. So unlike with Sergeant Landis, they couldn't close Williamson's wounds. This wasn't anything new for Umbrella. They were always cutting corners on the employees who they deemed not important. UBCS fell under that category, unless they were supervisors. Umbrella's Secret Service, however, were spared no expense. Conrad had no way of fixing this. Williamson had begun to bleed so much, it was now beginning to drip down and pool on the concrete street beneath him, making him feel even weaker.
I'm Christian. I can't do it myself. I don't want to be one of those soulless things. I'm so sorry.
After apologizing again, tears began to steadily stream down Williamson's face.
I don't want to have to ask you this.
Veronica takes the last bit of her strength to sit up. She was crying with them.
It's okay. I understand. It's okay.
Thank you.
Conrad aimed his Glock at Williamson's head and said,
I'm so sorry it came to this. Be at peace, brother. I'll deliver the letter, and you won't be a zombie. I promise.
Williamson closes his eyes.
Thank you.
After a moment, Conrad achieved the courage needed to help his comrade and pulled the trigger. Williamson was now at peace. Conrad couldn't help but feel he has failed him too. Conrad tightly closed his eyes as more tears streamed down his face. He wanted to be out of here, away from this. This world continued to cut bits of him away as his soul was snuffed out. That was never more apparent than while being trapped here in Raccoon City by Umbrella. Conrad opened his eyes as more tears formed. He breathed deeply and wiped the falling tears from his cheeks. A look of rage-filled determination appeared on his face. He knew his mission. He knew what he must do, and he would stop at nothing to at least save Veronica. Conrad puts the strap of the shotgun around his shoulder as he turned back to Veronica. She tried to get up, but became lightheaded again.
It's okay. I'm getting you out of here.
Conrad walked over to the gate. The handle was wrapped with a chain and locked with a cheap padlock. Something so cheap, you could pick it up pretty much anywhere. Conrad grabbed the padlock and put it between two of the bars, hoping if there was any ricochet, the bars would stop it from hitting him. He then equipped the shotgun and pushed the barrel through the bars, butting the lock right up against the end of the gun. He positioned himself so nothing would hit Veronica behind him, and turned his head. Conrad pulled the trigger, and bits of metal lock blew away from him onto the stone ground inside the gate. He was lucky. Nothing blew back in his direction. All that was left of the lock was the shackle wrapped around the chain. He removed it and unchained the gate. He then pulled the handle up, finally allowing the gate to be opened. He pumped the shotgun to chamber another round and put it back around his shoulder before kneeling down to grab his hatchet, tucking it away. He then picked Veronica up. He turned to face St. Michael's clock tower, feeling almost overwhelmed by its massive size. He then pushes the gate open with his foot and enters as rain continues to fall on them. They found themselves in a large courtyard with a fountain. It was breathtakingly beautiful. It had been filled with bright summer flowers and sculptures, a major contrast to the outside city. He walked around rows of flowers as he walks closer to the fountain at the center. He is surprised it is free of the dead. He walked around the fountain and heads to two large doors leading inside the museum part of the clock tower. Inside, he is met by different paintings on white walls, scattered throughout a dimly lit hall. Emergency lights were lit up along the walls from some unknown power source. They have three options: left, right, or straight. He decides to head straight to the other side of the massive room to try to make it to the front of the building. He discovers a large doorway leading into a lobby. In the center of the lobby was a round admissions desk with a corpse leaned over on it. Directly to his right, he spots another sign next to a doorway that leads down a little hall. The sign says, "To Manager's Office and Renaissance Period," with an arrow leading down the hall. As he makes his way down the hall, he is met by artwork of the Raccoon City founders. The images began with the purchase by treaty of the land from the local natives in the 1800s from the Chickasaw tribe. A plaque was underneath one of the paintings, discussing when Missouri was made a state in 1821 due to the Missouri Compromise. With the Missouri Compromise came the founding of a small, rustic town, then known simply as Raccoon. The artwork then depicted humble beginnings, surviving the Great Fire of 1923, to Raccoon City's tedious electrification process in the 1960s by local engineer Michael Warren, at the behest of the then current mayor, Charles Ashmore. Raccoon City was one of the last towns in this area of southern Missouri, known as the Boot Hill, to add electricity, citing it as a passing fad until the election of Mr. Ashmore, who saw it as a step into the future and a commodity they desperately needed to stay relevant. The next painting showed Michael Warren helping to come up with design plans for Raccoon City's rail yard and the many railroads that webbed through the city. His goal was to turn the city into a thriving metropolis as a major importer and exporter of goods. The next painting showed Michael Warren becoming mayor in 1987 thanks to his popularity in the town. There was even a statue erected of him in the city because he was so well loved. All his immense work was just the beginning of turning Raccoon City into what it is today. However, nothing changed the city as much as Umbrella, who came to call this town its home office for the USA during the 1960s. Later, Umbrella would spread like a cancer, opening offices in almost every city in the US and almost as many labs of varying sizes. Of course, citizens never knew the labs existed until the local stars discovered one earlier this year. And still, citizens didn't believe it could be true. Over most of the town was employed by Umbrella to some fashion, because they basically put their claws into almost everything. Pharmaceuticals was just the beginning, and as a result, it made this city important to not just the heartland, but it became as important as Los Angeles, New York, or Seattle for the United States. At the end of the hall, he sees a momentous statue of Lord Oswald E. Spencer, who founded Umbrella with his two deceased partners. The statue was almost as tall as Conrad's height of 6'1", so he assumed it was life-size. He was wearing a very aristocratic-looking suit, complete with a cane. Its expression was almost one of disdain. The depiction was him as a middle-aged man from when he first came to Raccoon City. With all the hush money Spencer sunk into the city, buying off everything, he was treated with the highest honor in the public eye, being seen as a hero for helping to bring Raccoon City into the modern era and turning it into the metropolis it was until this terrible outbreak. Seeing Spencer sickened him. Conrad hoped, wherever he was, he will get what's coming to him, and wished with everything in him he could have a hand in his downfall. He turned right and finds the large room is free of the dead. Another art hall with high ceilings. The room was so dark he couldn't see much except what was illuminated by his flashlight. With no windows, it made this dark hall feel like some deep, ominous catacomb. Artwork flashed in the light of his flashlight. Beautiful paintings by Michelangelo, Hieronymus Bosch, Giovanni Bellini, Da Vinci, and many others lined the room. At the end of the room, he spots a sign saying, "Manager's Office." He entered and finds no dead inside here either, so he set Veronica down in the office chair, next to a window lighting up the room. She leans back in the chair and closes her eyes. Conrad turns to leave, but is stopped.
I'm sorry. I'm slowing you down. You should leave me here and save yourself.
No. We're getting out of here. Stay in here. I'm going to signal the chopper. Just rest. She nods and lays her head on the desk. Conrad spotted a large metal flashlight next to her head, much larger than his own. He grabbed it and presses the switch to light it up, before returning to the Renaissance room. He made his way back through the art room and headed back down the hall lined with the history of Raccoon City, and back out to the lobby, alone. This place felt even bigger than it looked outside. He was unsure what he was going to find here, but his fear was replaced with determination. Nothing was going to stop the two of them from getting out of here. He equips the shotgun, bracing the flashlight against the forestock. Once back to the atrium, he headed straight. He makes his way deeper into the room. Ahead of him to his left was a massive staircase with 2 double doors and an exit sign leading to the front of the building. Around him, beautiful sculptures and architecture lined the lobby, but he couldn't discern its period. The atrium was so regal, it almost resembled the entrance to some prestigious ballet theater, with red, lush carpeting lining the floors. This place would have been breathtaking, but now, here in the dim light, it just felt like another tomb in this necropolis. Seated at the admissions desk was what turned out to be a zombie, not a corpse. It was lying its head on the desk, a living dead security guard, lying in wait. Conrad's flashlight activating the deadly sentinel. It stood up. Conrad walks over and smacks it with the butt of his shotgun, releasing some of the frustration and causing it to fall to the floor. He then slams the butt of it into its head repeatedly. This caused its head to cave in, while brains and gore exploded out. Conrad let out a roar cry, as rage overtook him from what all has transpired. He followed this by wiping the butt of the shotgun on the zombie's clothes, to clean it before placing it back against his shoulder. He noticed a name printed on the shirt of the uniform. Apparently this citizen's name was Eddie. Conrad's eye is then drawn to a holster on the middle-aged security guard's side, holding a Ruger GP100 .357 Magnum within. He grabbed it, feeling the weight of its sturdy frame in his hand, and quickly tucked it away. To the right of the main entrance doors, Conrad noticed an elevator. He didn't trust it to be in working order, with the power being in the shape it was in. So he moves to the stairs. I should go to the clock tower first. See what I'm dealing with, he thought to himself. He ascends the half stairs and found it curved around to a small landing. The lobby was now below him to his left. More artwork hung on the walls to the right. He found the short landing ended, forcing him to head up more stairs to the left to the second floor and beyond. The staircases kept going high into the air. On the 10th floor, he comes to a push door leading to the roof. Locked, of course, impeding him from entering. Conrad tried to break it down, but couldn't get it to budge. He just succeeded in bruising his shoulder. Annoyed, he heads back down to the first floor, figuring the custodian or the manager should have a key somewhere. An hour of searching and killing a few zombies, you finally discovered a place for security guards, complete with cameras, lockers, and a break room. Here he finds another zombie security guard. He invades the zombie's skull with his hatchet and finds on a hook next to the monitors a key labeled roof. Before leaving the break room, he also noticed a sign pinned to a message board. He stopped to read it.
Notice. The part for the bells has arrived. On Friday, the repairman will be here to replace the cog. Since the new guy will be working that day, we need to let him know how to access the clock tower. I know it's been a while since anyone has been up there, so here's what you gotta do. Get the 3 balls for the paintings in the side room on the 7th floor. Place the balls in the correct order and it will release the key to the clock tower. Take the key to the clock tower and let the repairman in. I know this is a pain, but the owners thought it was a great idea to place the key in a special artwork since we hardly ever go up there. I've personally never liked the idea myself. Actually, I really find it pretty stupid. But oh well. I found one of the missing balls, by the way. I'll leave it in the gear on the desk for you by the camera monitors. I can't find the other 2 thanks to the incompetent buffoon I fired last week. They should all be with the maiden statues up there, but they're not. He probably left the other 2 at his station on the 7th floor with the artwork. I haven't looked yet, but since that's where he was stationed the day he lost them, I'm assuming it should be there. I'm on vacation until Monday. If you can't find it, just reschedule the repairman and I'll help you look when I'm back. Thanks in advance, Security Supervisor Matthew McKelson.
Ugh! Fuck this city. Nothing is ever fucking easy here. At least he had his heading. He grabbed the gear and the obsidian ball from the desk before heading out. Check the roof again. Maybe I can break that damn door to the clock tower down, he thinks to himself. Once to the door leading to the roof again, he used the key, opened the door, and exited out. Blinded by the sunlight, he paused to let his eyes adjust from the dark museum. He was met by rain, yet again. Here he found himself on a gray stone balcony. He could see the whole city from up here, even the RPD in the distance. I pray this day is beginning better for you than it is us. And that horde somehow misses you. He said this aloud to himself, a whispered prayer to the ether for his fellow survivors still trapped in this decaying city. His attention is drawn to a giant spotlight and a sign which read, "For grand opening events on exhibits only. Do not touch unless under these conditions." Conrad ignored this and pressed on. Up ahead was a sizable stone staircase that led to towering double doors at the base of the clock tower. The doors was at least 10 feet in height. Once to the steps, he heard a noise from above that startled him. He quickly raised his shotgun to find the thing making the noise. The source of the fluttering sound came from higher up on the tower itself, below the clock. It was a gargantuan moth. The hulking juggernaut was just half of the horrific image. It is stuck to an enormous web, stretching the length of the clock tower. This horrific sight was mostly below the clock, but there was still some web on the clock itself. This gave Conrad chills. He ignored it, hoping he didn't have to contend with the moth or whatever made the webs. His attention shifted to the door itself. Iron doors with the image of a man with his hands outstretched, like he should be holding something. Fuck if I know what, Conrad thought. However, in his hands was nothing but an indentation, like some metal should be placed within. Words were on the door that read, Kronos, the keeper of time. Present him with the chronosphere to gain access to time itself.
What the fuck is a chronosphere? Why is this so damn hard?
He pushed against the iron doors. Nothing happened. The door didn't give in the slightest.
Damn it!
He tried again with all his strength, but the doors wouldn't budge. Being iron, he couldn't shoot it open. He wasn't even sure C4 would blow these damn doors open. No, he was stuck having to find whatever this cursed chronosphere was to advance. This angered him beyond words. He didn't like leaving Veronica alone this long, so he decided to check on her first, then head to the 7th floor together. Back in the dark, Renaissance art room, where the manager's office is, he finds he isn't alone. From the high ceiling, a creature quietly lowers itself down to the ground, behind Conrad, and begins running towards him. Its many legs working overtime to bridge the gap between them to attack. Ah! Startled by the sound of its legs slapping the ground and a terrible clicking stridulation sound coming from the creature, he turned and saw a gigantic spider. This abomination had gained the ability to stridulate in its mutation, similar to the Goliath spiders and tarantulas found in nature. This terrible sound was from him unknowingly entering its territory and it feeling threatened. He fires quickly, his fear and quick action causing him to miss and blow a hole in the marble floor. He quickly pumped the shotgun and took aim. He fires, making his mark, blowing its head off and half its stomach. From his left, another lunged at him, causing him to fall to his right side, sending his shotgun sliding across the floor. He flipped over on his back, just as the creature lands on his stomach. He tried to fight it off, but is unable to. It sunk its fangs down into his shoulder, tearing his sleeve in the process. He grabs his Glock and fires 8 rounds into the nightmarish creature, causing it to collapse on top of him. He manages to push the creature off and grabs his shotgun. 3 more were coming after him. He quickly fired another round, hitting one of the creatures in its head, killing it instantly. He pumps the shotgun one final time and tries to fire again, but it just clicked. Fuck! He drops the shotgun and starts running. It was no use. Another lands on his back, almost knocking him down as it sunk its fangs into his back. He tried fighting it off, but it just won't budge. God damn it! As it lands another bite into his back. He finally fights it off him. He grabbed his hatchet and sunk it into its head, getting another kill. He pulled out his handgun and fires the last of the clip into another arachnid, killing it. Another spider is running for him across the marble floor. He dodged it as it lunged for him. He aimed his Glock and pulled the trigger. Fuck! But it clicked. He dropped the empty Glock and went for his Magnum. He fired 4 shots into the beast. And it fell, sliding on the marble floor and coming to a stop just at his feet. Conrad stood there a moment, trying to catch his breath, still in shock, with his heart racing and adrenaline pumping through his veins. He could still hear the blood-chilling clicking sound it emitted while trying to attack him in his head, like a PTSD flashback. He shined the flashlight around on the high ceiling. There was a web stretched across it, from one side to the other. but thankfully no more spiders were in sight. In an instant, everything went wrong. His puncture wounds began to burn from the fangs invading his body, while pumping poison into his system. Everything hit him, and he realized what just happened as the shock wore off.
Shit. I should have checked this room better.
With no options except for ringing the bells to get the antivirals from the chopper, he pushes the terrible events of what just transpired deep into the dark recesses of his mind. He collected himself, retrieved his hatchet from the giant spider's head, and walked back to the office with Veronica. Once inside, he saw her eyes were closed, and she was still lying her head on the desk.
Veronica.
No answer. He walks over and taps her on the shoulder.
Are you still with me, Veronica?
She slowly opens her eyes and looks up at him. Her face had become very pale.
Yes, I'm still here with you. I'm just resting my eyes.
She tried to stand. Her arms give out. She turns to look at Conrad, sees his arm and asks,
Your arm. Are you okay?
She laid her head back down on the desk, with her eyes fluttering.
I'll be fine. It's nothing. I got you. Let's go.
Conrad picks her up again.
I'm getting you out of here.
Entering back into the Renaissance art room, he hears a strange tearing sound. While still holding Veronica, he shines the flashlight in his right hand down onto the spiders' dead bodies, and saw 2 of them were being eaten from the inside out. Baby spiders, about the size of his fist, were eating their way out of their mothers, their bodies still providing sustenance to these fledgling arachnids. The monstrous sight gave Conrad chills. He couldn't tell how many were inside, but he knew he needed to get away, far away. He hurries out of the art room as fast as his legs will carry them. He takes her back to the atrium and up the stairs. He was now beginning to sweat as much as Veronica. Once to the 7th floor, he finds another large hall with art from Egypt. Sarcophaguses and weapons riddled the walls. Sickles, spears, and ceremonial daggers. Beautiful jewels dazzled in his eyes, shimmering from the emergency lights still lit up in this room. The gold-encrusted sarcophaguses were breathtaking. It reminded him of the great pharaoh Tutankhamun. His Egyptian knowledge was limited to what he learned in high school years ago, which, at the time, he was failing, while tasked with taking care of his sister. After a while, he was inevitably forced to drop out, to find time for his 2 jobs. He found himself missing the normal things in life, anything, even the bad memories, just to be away from this nightmare of a city. He also found himself wishing this visit wasn't just about survival. He wanted to get lost in the rich history of these relics. He was always fond of Egyptian culture. One of his favorite movies as a child was Universal's The Mummy's Hand. He possessed it on a VHS tape he wore to pieces with his sister, as they always laughed at its absurdity. Among the exhibits were a few benches scattered here and there for people to sit and take wonder in the beautiful visages displayed. he noticed a door in a far corner with a sign saying, "Security," and heads for it. Inside is a rectangular-shaped room with a desk for the security guard to sit when not doing rounds. It was lit up by sunlight shining through a small window behind the desk. In the corner was a small mini-fridge. Towards the back of the room was the desk, lined with jerky, a candy bar, and chip wrappers. It was very untidy. Along the wall to his left were 3 large paintings going from the middle of the wall all the way up to the high ceiling. The first painting depicted a female child in a purple dress sitting on grass in a field. A smile was stretched across her face as if she didn't have a care in the world. To her right in the distance was a towering castle. Next to her was a sapling of a new plant. The second depicted a middle-aged woman in a white dress with a pensive expression on her face. A sunny sky is outside a window to her left, with the sapling from the previous painting now fully grown into a sturdy tree. The regal-looking woman is sitting on a gigantic, beautiful throne, fixed with jewels. Around her was a breathtaking throne room meant for a royal queen. The last painting was ghastly. It depicted a skeletal woman in a blue dress. She was sitting on the throne in the previous painting, except in this one, everything around her looked aged and weathered. The window to her left showed a torrential downpour, with lightning cracking in the distance, and the grass field was now barren. Dirt was all that was left, with patches of dead grass. The mighty tree was also a shell of its former self, just like the woman on the throne. Bare branches, the skeletal remains of the sapling was all that remained from the first painting. The throne appeared to have all the jewels removed, like it was stolen, and everything looked frail as if it was all about to fall apart at any moment. This was the ruins of a life picked clean by time, and with it, the unimaginable weight of life. An inscription was underneath the 3 paintings. The goddesses of time, past, present, and future. Offer your sacrifice to gain access to the heavens, and with it, time itself. Underneath each painting was a round slot for what appeared to be the balls from the security notice. Conrad set Veronica down next to the door and began searching the room. He pulled the drawers out of the desk and poured its contents out on top. Mostly garbage, office supplies, and food wrappers from whoever occupied the desk previously. The balls weren't here. He kept looking. He even opened the fridge to look inside. The stench of spoiled Chinese food assaulted Conrad's nose, and he almost vomited. He quickly closed it back after he saw the balls weren't inside. Next, he moved the fridge out, looking behind it. Nothing. He also looked under the desk to no avail. He went over to the middle painting and tried pulling it off the wall, but couldn't find anywhere to really gain purchase on the painting. The frames were made into the wall and could only be taken apart and removed for cleaning of the art pieces via a detachable wood piece in the frame itself at the bottom. So he took his hatchet and put a small cut into the painting to see behind, hoping if it was wood he could Jack Torrance his way through to the chronosphere. But that wasn't an option. Behind the picture was a metal wall. This damn thing was made like a bank vault, so the only way to get it without destroying everything and possibly the chronosphere with it was the balls to unlock it. At this point, he decided to exit the room to check the floor more thoroughly. After about 25 minutes of searching, he finally came across the maiden statues mentioned in the notice. On them was a little round slot with a movable glass covering. The balls weren't here, just as it said. By this time, he began to feel lightheaded and severely nauseous, causing him to vomit bile onto the marble floor. Without options, without hope, and unable to push his body further, he is forced to give up before he passes out. Conrad was overwhelmed with feeling severely defeated and desperately did not want to inform her of what has happened. He slowly drags his body back to the security office and sits down next to Veronica, who was fighting to stay conscious, just to the left of the three paintings. So close, and yet so far. The damnable chronosphere is right here, in this room, but unattainable. It might as well be in another state.
Damn you, Umbrella. Damn all of you to hell.
She fluttered her eyes open and looked up at him.
We're stuck here, aren't we?
Yes. I'm so sorry, Veronica. I can't find the fucking keys. And these goddamn bites are making me feel dizzy too.
She laid her head on his shoulder and holds his hand.
It's okay. I'm just glad I'm not dying alone.
I'm glad I can at least do that.
I'm just going to close my eyes for a moment. Keep talking to me, please. Tell me more about your sister. What did you two used to do together?
We did everything together. Our favorite thing was making fun of horror films, even though we loved them. We talk about anything and everything late into the night. Despite me being older, she was my best friend. When I was born, my mother gave birth to a twin, a little girl. She was stillborn. Maggie, she was like my twin. We grew so close. Maybe in some unforeseen way it was her soul reborn in Maggie. I'd get hurt. She'd cry. We'd share the same thoughts. A few dreams. We'd even finish each other's sentences. That's why, when I saw you, I felt this was my last chance. My last chance to make up for my failure. But I can't even get you out of here.
He looked down at her and noticed she had stopped breathing. She was gone, and the last shred of himself he had left went with her. He wiped tears off his face and checks her pulse. Nothing.
Ah!
He throws his hatchet across the room in anger and it's stuck in the wall. She could return at any moment. He opened the chamber at the Magnum and saw only 2 bullets were left. This felt almost like providence to him. He held his thumb over the unspent shells and turned the gun over, allowing the empty casings to fall to the floor. He closed the chamber back up and pressed the gun to the front of her head next to him.
Please, forgive me.
The loud bang almost blew out his eardrum. But for him, that no longer mattered at this point. It was done, and she wouldn't return. Even if he was able to get them to the evac chopper and use antivirals, the strain that was here in this city was different than the one Umbrella was used to. It had been changed, mutated into something they couldn't have foreseen by a terrorist thought dead. He poisoned the water here in the city, destroying and damning every living soul in this metropolis to an unimaginable genocide unlike the world had ever seen before. Antivirals capable of curing this T-virus strain hadn't been made readily accessible and wouldn't be made by Umbrella. So if bitten or infected with the T-virus during this time, you'd better hope you belong to the populace of 10% or less who is immune to the T-virus. As for Conrad, there was nothing to stop the poison within him, except a blue herb that grows here in Raccoon City, like the aforementioned green and red herbs. Many years ago, the local natives discovered the blue herb was highly effective against anything poisonous found in this environment. The spiders found in this region that were poisonous were no different. Conrad wasn't sure if he'd return as a zombie by a T-virus infected spider bite. No one truly knows at this time. Nevertheless, their venom is far more potent after their mutation, yielding a higher infection and kill rate post-contamination. After a moment, he decided to pull out his journal and began to write one final entry. September 28th, 1998.
I have failed every promise I've made. Even if I could find the balls needed to unlock the damn chronosphere, I don't deserve to leave this place. This will be my last message. In case you find us, I will place the one ball I have next to this journal. You have to find the other 2 balls yourself, and place them in the pictures in this room to get the key to the clock tower doors. I am also enclosing the cog I found. Apparently it's to replace the current one. You have to use this to ring the bells, and a chopper will come to take you out of here. Please, just make it out of here alive. I'm the last surviving member of my platoon with the UBCS. Rodriguez was killed in a church down the road. Williamson's body is outside of this clock tower by the rear gate. They were both killed by something Umbrella calls hunters. I'm leaving a letter from Williamson. Please, make sure it gets to the address on the envelope. Also, I don't know if you can find Alejandro Rodriguez's family, but if you can, please let them know he isn't with us anymore. I'm sure Umbrella won't inform his wife after what's happened here. I know this is several requests, but please do what I could not. They were good men and didn't deserve this. Out of the 3 of us, they didn't sacrifice any civilians at JJ's bar. I'm also leaving a file I found. It exposes Umbrella, who had taken over the city and was paying off officials so they could do whatever they wanted.
Use it to punish them all. Make every one of those motherfuckers pay for what they've done to the city. The woman with me is Veronica Price. She was a reporter here. I couldn't save her. I shot her to make sure she didn't return. I'm infected too. Beware of the spiders. I only have one option left, and one bullet. I deserve this fate. Conrad closed the letter up in the journal and places it on the ground next to them. He takes the picture of Rodriguez and his family and writes both Alejandro and Bella's names on the back. He never learned his daughter's names. He did this as one final remembrance of this man, a small requiem for his fellow fallen soldier. He placed the picture in his journal with the letter. He then places the journal on top of the file with the cog and the ball for whoever may come here trying to survive. He silently prayed to the ether they will read it and get out of here alive. After all his failures the last couple of days, he hoped this one thing goes right. He has no way of knowing this, but this one act will help a survivor. In the forthcoming evening, a woman will find this journal and use this information to call the helicopter. She will be stopped by the creature fellow STARS member Brad Vickers was worried about. But that's a different tale. However, she'll mail the letter and find Rodriguez's family, for STARS officer Jill Valentine will be forever haunted by this misfortunate soldier's journal. She'll never forget the image of these two lying together, and will be overcome by so many emotions, recognizing Veronica's face from the interview she conducted. She'll even hold on to the journal and picture, storing them in a military backpack she found along her last escape out of Raccoon City, never allowing herself to forget the tragedies of this outbreak and the many lives it took, because she feels everyone's story matters, whether she learns them all or not.
Everyone has a story, even if it's the tales of the dead. They need to be told.
She'll say this during the trial against Umbrella, while the board members try to belittle the countless deaths and cast off any damaging hint of their involvement in what all transpired. Her sense of justice driving her as she tries to stand up for all the people killed during the outbreaks that aren't there to stand up for themselves, attempting to balance the scales even if she has to do it herself to make things right. Jill will even go as far as to strategically use Conrad's journal and file to aid in the downfall of Umbrella, finally having tangible evidence to support her claims. Conrad sat there, staring at the chamber of the revolver as he rotated it in his hand, lost in the pain this world has wrought, as tears streamed steadily down his face. But he just kept sitting there, spinning the chamber. His thoughts slipped to his past, and everything that happened leading him here began flooding his mind. From the good times with his sister and parents, to how he imagined his mother and father's car accident occurred, and being told at the hospital they had lost them both.
I'm sorry to inform you, but in spite of our best efforts, we were not able to save your parents. I'm so sorry for your loss.
The nurse informed them on that terrible day, after the doctor shirked his responsibility of informing the family onto her. His mind then slipped to him robbing the convenience stores. Then he remembered the cops coming to their home and separating Maggie and him. The look on her face as she cried and begged them to uncuff Conrad.
No! No! You can't! Please, leave us alone! Please don't take him too! Please!
She screamed as the police put them in separate cars.
Stevie! Stevie!
Her voice being silenced as the door closed. From the back of the squad car's windows, the two siblings stared back at each other with tears in their eyes until they were out of view. Conrad then remembered the holding cell they held him in until he saw the judge.
Please don't put me in prison. I'll do anything. Please give me another option. I was just trying to protect my sister the best way I know how, after our parents. Please don't punish me for that.
The young Conrad pleaded. The judge softened and told him he'd give him another chance since no one was shot or injured during the robberies. The agreement was made for it to not go on his record if he joined the Marines. The sound of the gavel filled his mind as he remembered the judge making his ruling. After that, Conrad thought about his time in the Marines and his return home. He remembered how excited he was to finally see his sister again. Then the image of his sister in the hospital bed flooded his mind.
If Maggie just fucking listened, I wouldn't have to punish her so much. Some cunts are just too stupid to understand simple English.
While the words of her boyfriend and the damned heart monitor as she flatlined echoed in his ears. A part of him wished he could have his life back, his family back, or that he could beat that dumbass senseless all over again for taking his sister as the rage began to burn inside him. Then he remembered his CO, a man named James Pitt. Of all the people Conrad met in the Marines, this was the person he had the fondest memories of. A take-no-shit kind of guy with a big heart.
Listen, Conrad, I can't make this go away. I'm truly sorry this happened. I will help you best I can. I won't let you get court-martialed for this. You deserve better than that. I know this world's taking a large shit on you and your family, but you don't deserve this. Never forget that. Just between us, and if you tell anyone, I'll deny it.
He followed this with a bit of a wink before he continued that day.
But the man that put your sister in the hospital deserved exactly what he got. If the tables were turned and someone hurt my family, I'd hurt the fucker just as bad, if not worse. Don't worry, son. I'll make it to where you're only dishonorably discharged. It's gonna suck like a $5 whore on Sunday, but you will survive this.
Conrad remembered after being discharged, he went through a period of time where he felt so lost, without purpose. He went from trying to find any work that would take him, being dishonorably discharged, which wasn't much, to people treating him as if he was lower than dirt, little comments of disdain that showed him where he stood in the world, or whispers and looks of disgust once the news of what he'd done got out. Soon after, a man, a representative of Umbrella, came to see him.
You can spend your days mopping floors for far less than minimum wage, or you can join Umbrella's military and start your life anew.
You can put your time in the Marines to good use.
We do not care about the circumstances of your discharge. We just want you to be loyal to Umbrella. The choice is yours.
Conrad took the job instantly, despite that being yet another mistake in his life, leading him to where he sits now. He then remembered his short time with Umbrella and the missions they sent him on. He wondered if the people he was sent to take out actually deserved it, or if they were just some malicious means to further Umbrella's evil agenda. A question he wished he asked himself sooner, before signing on the dotted line to sell his soul. His thoughts then slipped to the mission here in Raccoon City.
I
I can't thank you three enough for staying to help. Together, we all have a chance to make it out of here.
I've decided, Elliot. I'm not leaving until I make sure you're safe too.
The campus isn't the only place for those zombies.
You really think we're gonna be okay? Are you fucking stupid, Helen? We can't be certain of anything! This is hell!
Honey, look at me. Shh. Don't listen to him. I'll be okay.
Our governor here in Missouri, Mel Canahan, had a hands-off approach to this whole thing. We're fucking alone here!
So as of right now, you're that help.
I'm counting on you to return with good news to help us out here.
Yeah, shut the fuck up. Thankful to have them with us.
We've learned to keep some graves dug at this point. We've had to start stacking the bodies too. This needs to end soon or we're gonna run out of room for the dead.
I actually haven't seen my family in 2 years. They are what keeps me fighting. I do this for them.
And just tell my ma. I'm sorry.
I'm just glad I'm not dying alone.
His mind was flooded with everyone's faces he'd met along the way. From the ones still trying to survive, to the ones he couldn't save, or all the living dead citizens still haunting the city. Everyone Umbrella essentially murdered. He then imagined the RPD and wished with every fiber of his being that they don't meet the same fate that has befallen him. In the end, Conrad felt his life had been wasted, stolen, and nothing but a bed of thorns he had been forced to walk across. Conrad's vision began to heavily blur as the pain from his bites became overwhelming. The crippling, overwhelming, crushing weight of this world and his rage and anguish suddenly faded away as his tears stopped falling. A strange sense of calm washed over him, knowing he had only one way out of this city. He rotated the barrel one final time and laid back against the wall. With Veronica's head still resting upon his shoulder, he grasped her hand tightly, one last act to comfort himself as he takes his final breath. Breathing in deeply, he then places the gun to his temple and pulls back the hammer. A loud pop and a quick, sharp pain are the last things he'll ever experience.
commitment, honesty, integrity, these are the core values that create the foundation for Umbrella. It's this foundation that will continue to build a brighter future for all of us.